Friends and some old friends. Hello, John Culver. So nice to see you. We have some of our board members here. Roger Crooks is a board member, the vice president of our club, and he'll be doing the main demo tonight. We'll kind of gather in a few minutes. Thank you for keeping your microphone muted. So I'm hoping some of you are expert sharpeners. Roger and I are experienced, but not experts. And I think maybe we're experts in the sense that we know we don't know. And I guess that's maybe the beginning of this stuff. Our one of our main instructors was a guy named Chuck Reinhardt, and he moved into Portland about 7 or 8 years ago at age 89 and volunteered to teach for us at carving. And so we ran about 25, no, about 50 students through a whole series of classes. That was kind of the foundational one. And he made a comment once in one of the classes. He said, Larry, I've been sharpening for 20 years and I'm getting to be pretty good at it. And it was like, okay. And Rogers on the other side, he says, obviously it's hard to be an expert, but you can also get a lot done really quickly with really simple stuff. So we'll talk a bit about that as well tonight.
Chuck just had his 98th birthday and he's still going strong.
I know. How old is he now? 96?
98, I think.
98. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And he hosted a picnic for us a couple summers ago, and I think this is right, Bob. He was making two really large live edge walnut dining room tables with eight chairs,
Yep.
8 chairs each. So he was making 16 chairs and two live edge walnut tables out of a big shop that he had he shares with his son. So it's quite.
After that, he made a 13 drawer chest of drawers, Stickley style, for Larry, his son. All hand cut dovetails, not only on the front of the drawers, but on the back of the drawers as well. He did the hand cut dovetails joinery on front and back.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I never wear a hat. We'll get started right now. I never wear a hat, but my dermatologist decided to give me a beauty treatment. So this is day 14 of Fluorouracil, if you know what that is. It's a big cream that just sort of turns red spots all over your head. Those of you shaking your head know what it is. So I'm happy. And after this meeting, I put my last ointment on, but I'm not going to show my beauty marks on my head. So this is our monthly program. It's being recorded, and I want to make sure. Yes, it is being recorded. So we edit a little bit, the beginning and ending, and then we put it up on our YouTube channel and link it on our website, and you get an email that says it's now available to watch again, and particularly for those that weren't able to attend live. It's always nice to be able to go see it. But by pre-registering, there will be a handout with some of the reference and products that will get mentioned. You'll get that email to you, and it'll also be linked under our resources on our website, but it's a little harder to find. You're all muted. Thank you. It's going to be a little bit interesting and challenging tonight to field questions. I've got about a 10-minute presentation to kind of deal with some basic information, and then I'll switch and I'll move from my office inside my house out to the garage and where Roger's set up. And he's got some slides that he'll share, and then we'll do the demo with the skin onion WorkSharp system. The only announcement plug I would make for those of you living in Oregon, the annual uh, Coastal Carvers Show in Lincoln City is Saturday and Sunday. So if you haven't been, go. You gonna go, John Culver? Yeah. So I'll see you there. So I'll be there Friday setting up. We have the table. We'll have some things to sell, and as will one of our members who's in this audience. And it's a great show. It's like number 34, 35. 2 months later, Salem Capital Woodcarvers does the same similar thing in Salem for 2 days on the 28th and 29th. And I really encourage people to do those. It's really a lot of work to put a show together. Our Portland club does not do a show, but we go to shows. So we'll be at the carving shows, but we do two major ones. One will be at the end of April at the Oregon Convention Center for 3 days, and we'll have a 10-foot by 20-foot booth with comfort birds and some other carvings there for demo and for sale. And then we do a Labor Day weekend one. So we're going to talk about power carving stuff, power sharpening tonight. Excuse me just a minute. I get my thing set up. But I don't want to scare away beginners who aren't going to spend several $100s to buy a powered motorized system and get intimidated. It's a little hard if you have $100 worth of tools to go out and spend several $100s for a sharpener. It's just kind of an oxymoron in some sense. But we're going to do some beginning stuff. And okay, Bob Mack, I can see your face on my screen. Can you see that slide? Yeah, okay. So this is the WorkSharp system. WorkSharp is an Oregon company that had a rotary glass plated horizontal system, relatively slow speed. They stopped making that and decided just to focus on knife sharpeners. So that's the dominant product. This is the high end of their knife line, which also does gouges. There's a bunch of definitions, which also always gets down to the next slide that I'll show you about particle size measured in microns. There's a lot of different systems that we use. Obviously, we're using on rotary tools, rotary wheels, green or white honing compound. But you can buy diamond paste, you can buy used diamond stones, water. What I'm showing the next couple slides are from Christopher Schwartz. Chris Schwartz is a big deal in the world of woodworking. He wrote a book called Sharpen This, and he's an expert in sharpening. And he's the guy I learn a lot from. In a woodworking sense, he does carving, but not a lot. But his methods and his technology, his methodologies are really good. But all these media types, they say they're 3,000 mesh or 4,000 grit or something, but it doesn't mean the same thing. These are all normalized to particle size in microns. He also introduces these three terms: grinding, honing, and polishing. And the question is, what is stropping? So in this vocabulary tonight, stropping is polishing. And out of this Sharpen This book, grinding is just a very aggressive grits to reshape the metal for dealing with putting curves on edges or taking damaged things out or re-grinding the back bevel, those kind of things. Honing is creating a zero radius edge, and I'll just show a picture of that. Polishing / stropping is getting rid of scratch marks. For those of us that sand, we use 80 or 100 grit sandpaper, and then we move the progression to 120 and 180 and 220 and 320 and 400 and 600. The successive sandpaper grits are just removing the scratch marks of what was there before. It's not reshaping the object you're sanding. And so when we're sharpening, we're just sanding metal instead of sanding wood. And in this definition of sort of a continuum from, if you will, 0 microns to 300-ish, grinding is kind of using the coarse grits of 270 to 4 down to 40, and then honing is 40 to 12, and then polishing is less than 12. And the green honing compound is half a micron, so it's very, very fine. So when we strop with green, we're using almost the absolute bottom end of that. You might have different vocabulary. I forget what Chris Pye and Mary May uses, but these sort of saying, if you're grinding and removing metal, you can remove a lot, do it fast, and you can make errors really fast. So we'll talk a bit about that. The zero radius picture is on the right. In this case, it's a picture from his book that's got a micro bevel on it, so it's not quite a straight line on the top, but it's got a point on the top. And when things get dull, you see the edge that's rounded over or dulled or it's got something on it that you reflects light, and we'll look at that. So the goal of honing is to get down to a zero radius point. And then when we're polishing, we're taking off the scratch marks from all of that. In a sandpaper-based system, I ended up in the bottom of the bullets on the top side, the P3000 sandpaper is 7 micron. So that's getting down into polishing stuff. And I ended up, a guy gave me a whole packet of 3000 grit sandpaper. So I have that. And then as you kind of go up, if you have to really reshape things and you're starting to use 400 or 220 or even 80 in some cases, particularly with old plane blades and old chisels, you might actually have to go back to really coarse. But once it's shaped, you are then polishing. You're honing to the point, to the edge where it's sharp across the entire bevel in the case of a gouge, or you're polishing with white or green honing compounds. We think about dull, but dull is after use is obviously starting to sort of the edge gets dull. And I'm thinking that's different to me than rounded over. Rounded over is where you're actually over successive sharpenings, you're creating not a straight line on the bevel part, but it's kind of a rounded part. And it may be sharp, but it's also very steep angle. So it's going to cut at a different angle that you're holding on. And so a piece of sharpening is grinding down the rounded over part on the back of it in order to get that uh, angle of attack, if you will. If things are rusted or there's a little bit of chipping and fragile edges, the cutting edge becomes serrated. And we obviously see that with a little dimple or little little notch in the end. We'll see also that it could be dull and across the edge in places, but sharp in other places. And I'll show you an example of that. And the other side of sharp is I would call soft. So if we're buying cheap tools that have, or those that have lost their temper, they may sharpen really quickly, but they're going to dull really quickly as well. And so we get all these things going on. The issues with hard steel. So the bottom line that Roger espoused for us 4 or 5 years ago when we restarted the club is buy the best tools you can, which means buy the best steel you can. They will sharpen well, they will stay sharp longer. But if you end up getting too hard, they will sharpen hard, but they'll hold an edge forever, but yet they'll be brittle and they might break off in the end, particularly if you use them as a pry bar. Um, I've had mixed. I've used Harbor Freight gouges as sharpening exercises, and it turns out they sharpen up pretty well and hold their edge pretty well for some of them. But I've also gotten some really soft stuff, and so it doesn't last very long at all. The Rockwell scales, which is sometimes advertised with the tools, the harder ones tend to be in the sort of 60, 65 range, and the softer ones are in the 45, 50 range, and there's a bunch of stuff in between. I talked to the founder of Shaft Tools 4 or 5 years ago when he was just getting started, and he was getting really good results. His tools were made in China, and he was very happy, but he was really, really worried that the manufacturers there have a reputation of sucking you in with really good initial deliveries and then going with cheaper, softer steel over time. So he was setting up a testing process to actually verify that he was getting it roughly RC60 or 61 hardness on subsequent shipments that he was coming from. And Gil Drake, who Drake Knives, we'll talk a bit about his sharpener and him a bit more. He also had a hardness tester for the steel that he has. And as I just did a little bit of reading, it almost sounds like the Janka scale for metal equivalent. So they're pressing something into the metal to see how deep it goes and then measuring the hardness of that. But we make trade-offs in terms of that. So our sharpening journey can be improved by buying better tools at the beginning, obviously. We have a high power microscope, and these are, I think, maybe 300 or 400 zoom level magnifications. The top and bottom images are two different gouges looking right straight down at the edge. And the fact that the light is reflected a lot across the top edge says it's dull. And I put it against a piece of wood and test it, and it is dull. It just does not cut. The bottom gouge has been sharpened quite a bit, and it turns out it looks like it needs a lot of work, and I think it does. But when I tested it on butternut, it actually cuts pretty well. So somewhere in between the top and the middle and the eventual one were perfect. These lines will disappear. And so to me, the essence of some of these sharpening methodologies is having to do with being able to see what's going on as well as experiencing what's going on. For a knife, these are three different pictures of a knife. The one on the left is right out of the box of a $10 knife from Hutzel from Amazon. And these things sharpen up really well, but right out of the box, you see all these machine marks. This is the bevel section of the knife, which means all of that's got to be flattened out and removed, sanded down, ground down, honed down. The knife in the middle, you can't see any reflections. I mean, that's a sharp knife. There's nothing being reflected off that. The picture on the far right is the same knife as the far left, and you can start seeing the reflections going on, coming back right at you. It's easy to see at magnification, but it's really hard to see with the naked eye. And so you need magnification, you need some light to be able to get at these things. We'll come back to those things in a minute. The three primary sharpeners that we experience up here are the Drake, the Burke, and the WorkSharp. And Gil Drake of Drake formed Drake Knives many years ago and passed away a few years ago. And we were really lucky to have him be a speaker for us about 4 years ago. And that recording is on our website and on our YouTube channel, which is also how he makes his tools, his gouges and knives, and how he sharpens them. And he popularized this particular version of a grinder-based sharpening system, built a wooden case around it, and you can see kind of his logo on the bottom part of it, and it says white compound on the right and green on the left, I mean, and green on the right. He These were sold for about 150 bucks maybe 20 years ago. And when he bought the motor, he just unbolted the two bolts, rotated the motor around so the rotational direction was going away from you, so that if the tool lost control, it wouldn't stab you and kill you or send you to the hospital. The case had the function of being able to carry it portably, more or less, but also to contain the debris that was flying off when you loaded up the green or the right wheel. That motor runs at full speed at 3450. And the piece of paper on there is actually an original piece of marketing literature or instructional literature that went with the motor that says this machine needs to run at 3450 so that the wheel on the left, the very, very floppy wheel, will tighten up and be firm. If it's running too slow, it'll be too floppy and too soft, and it'll round over your tools. And I'll come back to that in a minute. This is a different version, also sold by Drake. He must at one point had a Grizzly motor instead of a Harbor Freight. And my guess is this is an earlier edition, and he realized he could save money by going to Harbor Freight instead of using a Grizzly motor. But otherwise, it's the same geometry. The wheel on the right is sold by Razor Sharp. It's a compressed fiber paper kind of a wheel, and its only purpose is to hold the green compound. All the black you see is metal that's been removed. The same floppy wheel is on the left. My mentor was Jeff Harness, and Jeff improved that system. He would do some sharpening at shows for Gildrake, but he built he had the plans for making a case, and I still have the plans if anybody wants to deal with this. But there the three improvements on this one. That block of wood in front of the right wheel is so your fingers can rest and provide, if you will, a tool rest and some form of stability, rather than having the tool float free form, which by even with your fingers on a block of wood, there's still some variability, and you have to be careful about how that goes. The This is a Craftsman variable speed grinder that I had. So it's running from full speed down to half speed. So I can run the right wheel at half speed, which reduces the risk with overheating, but I can crank it up when I'm doing the polishing to full speed on the right and reduce the risk of rounding over. Jeff, for most of his students, said, hey, let's just go buy the Woodcraft half-speed Rikon motor, which was typically on sale for $100 and now is almost double that, and to run everything at half speed. But you then have choices for what the left wheel looks like. You can buy ones with stitches in them, but which, if you will, if you will, they're pre-stitched and sturdier. In this case, I put a strip light underneath it, so it's lighting up some of the lighting, but the key here is that the flexible light at the top that's clamped on is shining straight down on the right wheel, and this is where all the work goes. So I'm able to actually have light on that edge, so I can see the light being reflected off that gouge, just like I could see it under the microscope for that, and it becomes a real part of that. It took me a while, it took Jeff a while to teach me how to deal with this, and I'm still learning for some of the tools. But and I can I'll talk more about that later if you want to give me a call on how that works. But the support block, and the light turn out to be key. The other one is, you notice on the far left is a little gold tube, and let's see if I have a picture. When Gildrake did a talk, he said you always get this blocks of white honing compound. He throws it away. He said he's got a tub of these things. He's replaced that white compound with this stuff, with this metal polish called Fabuluster from Rio Grande Jewelry Supply in Texas, I think. And he talked about that 4 years ago, and I've standardized on that. But I don't know what the micron size is. The white typically is half the grit size of the green. I'm kind of trusting that that's the case. It's a wax-based material, but the note on the bottom is that Chuck Reithart and Gig Lewis, of those that lost a new gig here, they liked Autosol, which is a German metal polish. And instead of suspending the particles in wax, they're suspending it in lotion. So it's just easier to spread, and it's just another alternative if it's the rouge kind of thing. So these improvements are, yeah, obviously if you're making your own grinder-based system, make sure the direction is reversed, add a hand block, get some lights, consider whether you can get a half speed, full speed, or variable speed. All of Gildrake's stuff is all running at full speed. Nancy Gerard, who lives here, does professional sharpening for $3 a tool, does all of her work with the orange one, the full speed one. The only reason the case is for, besides portability, is that keeps the splatter down. You don't have to have the case. Jeff didn't have one in his shop. He just had a paper plate with a little notch cut out. So when you loaded it up, it kept everything off. As far as I know, Drake is not selling those things anymore. The only thing other one is this do-it-yourself system that Daryl Easter in Southern California did. He's a quite well-known carver in California, at least in Southern California. I got to meet him at the Oakhurst Rendezvous last April, and he had this portable system, which I think was quite remarkable in its simplicity. He went to Harbor Freight and bought a corded drill. He he angled two pieces of 2x6s. So it looks like maybe 2x8, angled them, and when the drill is pushed down in this cavity, it's wedged in. So it's holding it stable. It's screwed underneath to another block of wood for stability. It's got a place for a pen, a Sharpie to be mounted, and he's got a magnifier, and he's got three different levels of colors of gout of rouges there that he's got. And on the top, the working end of this, besides the is a small buffing wheel, is a leather wheel from Woodcraft. It's got an edge to it, so you can get on the inside of V tools. He uses that angled edge for knives, but he also has a flat piece that you can't see here, a flat surface on top for doing gouges. So from a portability viewpoint, he does everything when he travels, and he travels a lot, and he teaches a lot. And I thought that was pretty clever. The only other thing for those of you that are beginning, and some of you I know are beginning, is how to build what I would call an essential sharpening kit. Don't go out and buy a motorized system. Get a strop. You know, the club has got a patron that will give you the leather. We'll give you 3" by 8" MDF blocks. We'll make a double-sided strop for you, help you make it, and give you some green compound and stick it in a Ziploc bag and protect it from dust. And then you have to go get some dowels with some leather on it for doing some inside bevel work or get some slipstones. We usually give away when we do our sharpening classes little pieces of thick and thin leather, thick ones for beveling them at 45 degrees for getting inside V tools, and then thin ones for rounding them off, for using those as removing the inside edge. Sharpie, obviously, I'll show you a magnifier that Diana Larrabee from our club first found almost 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, at Chuck's class, and it's highly used for what we do. Instead of going out and buying a rotary thing, using these same 3" by 8" blocks, double-sided sandpaper, 3,000, 1,500, 800, and 400 gives you a quite range of grits in order to do some more interesting metal work. A test block for knowing when you're done, a thin piece of paper for seeing if things are sharp, and maybe some water, maybe not. But I would hope that everybody getting started would end up with a sharpening kit and starting with that. And after that, you can get some work done, get a lot of work done, and get on with what you need to do. The one on the right is this jeweler's loop that I mentioned. This is a 10x to 30x, somewhere between $15 and $25. It's lighted, it's got batteries in the handle. It's got a bunch of LED lights around the inside, and you can see a whole lot more than you can see with your naked eye. And it's a good examining thing. This microscope on the left is what we have. It connects to a USB port. That's how I made those images. It's about $70. It's 1,200, up to 1,200 power based on either the height or coming and going. So it's a really nice diagnostic tool. My daughter has one she uses for taking splinters out of her kids' hands. And so she likes that for other reasons besides sharpening. And that is my quick and dirty sort of overview of some of the basic things. And we're going to switch to Roger. I'm in my office, so it's going to take me 30 seconds to walk outside. But at this point, are there any questions? Okay.
Larry, what is the reason for the black Sharpie on the sharpening kit?
So when you come to the sharpening class workshop that we do, Simon, it allows you to tell you whether you're hitting the right angle or not. So you'll highlight the back bevel when you stick it down on the stone or the wheel, particularly the strop. If you're not hitting the right angle, if you're hitting the back part, you're not hitting the cutting edge. If you're hitting the cutting edge but not the back, it means you're probably rounding it over. It's a feedback device, and we'll show you that. And on the website, Roger wrote a 16-page white paper and a 25-minute video on all the basics of hand sharpening, including the Sharpie. So take a look at that. That's a good way to kind of deal with that. And when you come over, Simon, next time we can also practice a bit. Okay.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about a product from WorkSharp, which is an Oregon company. But first, I wanted to talk about sharpening in general and tools. So we have, so I do flat work, I do wood turning, and I do carving. Each segment of woodworking takes its own tools, and you want all of them to be sharp. So in flat work, the thing you're mainly worried about are hand planes. And hand planes are easy to sharpen because there's a nice jig that you can get to put a fine edge on as fine an abrasive as you want to use. For wood turning, we have something similar to carving, but the tools are much different. They're bigger and they use a really hard steel. And the reason for that is if you think about what a wood turner does, if you put a 10-inch bowl on a lathe and you run it at 1,000 RPM, in 1 minute you put almost a mile on that gouge. Now, I don't think any carver has a tool that they're going to put a mile on in probably their lifetime. So the sharpening of wood turning tools, we go for really hard steel that will last a long time. But for carving, we're going to work with little softer woods. And so the carving chisels that you use and the knives that you use are need to be sharpened much sharper than we do for wood turning and more closer to a razor than anything else. So today we're going to talk about this product from excuse me, WorkSharp. And the market that they go after is a big market. It's kitchen tools, hunting knives, and things like that. So what we're going to show is a combination of the main tool and an option that you can get for it. So you can get the main tool, which is what we're going to show here, which is this here. And it comes with, so there's two things that you need for sharpening. You need an abrasive and you need a motor. When you are doing stropping, you're the motor and the strop is the abrasive. And if you don't want to spend $200, $300, $400, $500 on a power system, then just plan on spending a lot of time on your strop, which a lot of people, that's fine if you start with the good tools, get them sharp and keep them sharp, which is what we sort of preach in the sharpening class. So this device is called Kenor Ryan Mark II, and it's got a belt and it's got an adjustment here for the sharpen the angle, and this would be considered the jig. And the way you use it is you set the angle. In this case, we're going to test a kitchen knife. Where's the knife here? And basically, it's pretty dirt simple. The angle moves these two guides in basically to the angle that you set. And all you do is just run it through there. So pretty self-explanatory. Almost anyone can do it. And it works great for things like hunting knives and kitchen knives. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit later. But where it falls down is with short knives. The problem is the belt is right here and the guide is here. So the best you can do is only sharpen about, where is it? The best you can do is only sharpen about half. And in this case, it doesn't go down to the angles that we want. So if you have a long knife, maybe it'll work, but basically the nice thing about this is every carver has a kitchen and you have kitchen knives. So if you start with this, then it has a lot of utility there. It comes with an option though, which is this device that we're going to show. And let me switch over, hit number 4 there. Yeah, 4. So everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. My remote's not working. So this is what I just showed you. The motor goes from low speed to around 3 to 4,000. You can see it's adjustable 15 to 30 degrees. Comes with a scissor guide, and it comes with a number of small belts. One thing that drives me crazy with them is how they describe their their belts. So they start with P120, called extra coarse. Then they go to X65, which is coarse, X22, X4. I don't know where those come from, but for us, we like to work in grits. But the 6,000 one is where you would finish, and for kitchen knives and stuff, that works great. So that's basically it. The thing will rotate, so you could use it for lawnmower blades and stuff like that. There's the angles, and you see how the knife is guided along by the guides. So that basically is a jig, sharpening jig that doesn't take any skill or anything. What we want to talk about today is this attachment, which we're going to put on here, and take a second to take this off. So here we have the attachment, and basically it has the ability to set the angle that you want from 10 to 35 degrees. And what's that doing is setting this plate up here at that angle. The way you use it is this is setting that angle, and as you change the angle, it's going to change that, and you basically bring this over and rub it across the belt like that. So again, you go back, set the angle, and we're going to do that. Now, someone asked about the why a felt tip pin. I call that the marker jig. And basically, for anything that, basically for all the power systems, the ones that Larry showed, you basically don't have anything to help you set the angle. And the only way you know that you have the angle is to mark it with a Sharpie. And so I call that the marker method. And you're going to use that for knives. By the way, the belt is going this way.
Away from it.
It's going away from us.
You have an unused spare. That's
Yeah.
part of the new club acquisition. I don't know I think it's a fine grit belt.
Yeah.
Those two gouges you have, the one with the blue tape is the dull one, and this
Okay.
one is reasonably sharp, but you might.
You have a black marker. So we'll do a live demo here. And if you look here, you'll see that these two wheels are far apart. So I got a lot of flex here. I'm going to move them together. So now it's much tighter. We're going to use this marker method. So I've got it marked there.
Could you show us the edge when you're looking at it so we can see how it looks?
So we got the bevel pretty well cut. And what I should have done was measure it first, but let's just see where we are. So for a knife, you would use this fulcrum, but here we're going to, so this is where you have to be really careful. So I'm just laying it on there, and I'm going to put pressure down, and it came in at 340, which this was really dull, Larry said. So that's pretty good. So we could try it again and get it better, but being a demo, probably get worse, but just try it again for grins, and that'll be the
What grid are you working with?
Actually, over. This one is down quite a bit.
yeah, I'm really not using that.
You're not even.
Yeah. So again, back to the so I found that the angle was really down here. And we can try that again.
The big issue is you're not getting the burr off on this one.
Good point. I did not take the burr off, which don't really have a piece of leather here. So let's see if I got the burr off. Anyways, I think you guys have got the idea. I think it's a really good system. You can spend, $700 to $1,000 on a Tormac and jigs. I got the burr off. Let's see if what I said was right. 155. Whoops, you didn't see that.
I'll
So
keep walking in front of the camera. We'll do a test walk. Now we will see.
let me get the camera for you.
So this is butternut. Anything more? Be happy with that. Jeff Horness would say, that's a good 90% sharp. And I always stopped at 90%. He would go for 100%. But it gives a nice clean cut
Yeah.
with a reasonable amount of effort. And that was just a few minutes worth of work. I think it can be improved still, but I think it's still,
Yeah, I think if you went to the strop, it would get better. And what build is this? This is,
I can't remember. It
Yeah.
looks like the same as your, it looks like it's 1200. It's like the high, the finest.
no, it's not. It's not. It's fine. So it's 3,000. So we have 1,000 grit here. I've got the roller so that there's very little flex, but there is a little. And first thing we're going to do is get the angle by using the marker method. And what I'll be looking for is to make sure that all the blue felt pen is gone. So it may take a couple adjustments. I've got the speed set at a little over 2,000. So you can see that I don't have quite the angle, so I need to raise the handle a bit. And now I've got the angle, so I need to keep that. So it's ground pretty good. There's no marker on it. Now we'll get rid of the burr. I've got this little diamond, not sure what you call it, but it adjusts to about any curve or sweep of a gouge. So I can't feel anything, so now we're going to go back and measure it. So now we're down to 480, which was pretty good. So now we're going to switch belts to the 3000. Again, this is the 3000, or what they call fine, or X4. And we'll tighten it up. Check the tracking. Little tracking knob on the right here. And we'll do that again. I am going to mark it again just for the demo. But once you do it a few times, you sort of have the angle down pretty well. Again, we're going to remove the burr. Still like the leather way to do it best. And come back here and we'll put a new test clip in. Set to 0. Rest it on the medium. Now we're at 390. So I'm going to stick with the 3000 and do it again. Get rid of the burr. There we go, 195. So at this stage, I would just go to my strop and strop it and polish it and see how that does. So we'll set these aside for a second. So I've got a clamp on, so let's do that again. I'll lock my elbows. Looking good. I'll probably do this maybe 20 swipes. I'm going to flip it over and go to the polished side, which is just raw leather. Do the same thing. So we've stropped and we polished. Now we're going to take care of the burr. I can't feel anything, but I know it's there. So we'll see what the machine says. $175, which anything under 200 is good for carving. So hopefully that's a little better demo. So I just wanted to go over the parts of this. The angle that you're doing, going to sharpen at, is here. The adjustment for it is back here. And as that moves, it moves these plates to that angle. So if I set up for 20, these two plates are set at 20 degrees. And this is the tension release for changing belts. This is the tracking for centering the belt on the wheels. Again, you can adjust how much flex you have in here by moving these wheels. So now you have more, and I like to keep it pretty tight. These are used for knives. As you saw for the gouge, we did the marker method to find the right angle. But for a knife, you would rest it on there or down here. I just find the distance is shorter here. So let's do a knife. Got a 1-inch knife here, 1 1/4 I guess. I've got this set for 10 degrees. So that's 10 degrees per side for an included angle of 20. And again, we're going to rest it on the platform, bring it over here, and then keeping that straight and angle right, just going to run it on the belt. I've got this. So the first thing we want to do is measure it and mark it. I'm going to gently put on the test clip. So I'm at 310. So come back over here. Mark it. Get this set for 10 degrees. So 135. Oops. So the test came out at 135. And if I go to stropping, get my angle. I'm gonna rush it on here. $125. Okay, a little bit better. But do remember the tolerance on this is 5 grams, so it's close. The main thing is we didn't make it worse. So there it shows the flexibility of the belt by moving the second wheel down. And that's how you move the knife across there. You put it on one of the levelers that set the angle, and then you can just go back and forth. So when you can buy this, the basic system is $200, which if you think about what a grinder system is going to cost, grinders are about $150 at best. And then they come with stone wheels, which you're going to have to replace with something else, and those wheels are probably 100 or so. I think this is in the price range of the other power systems that we looked at there. You can also just buy the basic system and then buy the attachment for 140, but buying them both together saves you $40. And it comes with belts that are 1 inch, and they go up all the way to 12,000 grit. But again, they use the the X65, 22, and 4. So the other thing we wanted to talk about was how do you know it's sharp? So this measurement system we have here comes in 3 versions. There's a home system, which gives you 25 grams resolution, and I'll talk about why they talk about grams in a second. The professional one is down to 5, and the industrial is down to 1. The one I have here is the professional one. To me, 5 grams is fine. And so what do you use this for? The way it works is it's going to measure how much pressure you need to put on to break a calibrated, not working. Let's go back to the camera. So this is the system, and it has a calibrated wire here. It comes in clips like this, or you can buy a roll of it, which is here. But every time you break the wire, then you have to pull it out, and it just takes time. So what we're going to do here is show you basically how it works. We're going to set it down to 0. And this is a little fulcrum to help you steady the knife. And basically on this knife that we just used, 1100. So this is a really, really dull knife.
got a memory on the scale, right? This is the pounds it takes or the ounces it takes to break the wire,
How much pressure?
the calibrated wire.
Yeah. And so the key thing is the reason this works is that there's a scale called the BESS scale. Let me go back. So these are the calibrated mediums. And the BESS scale is what this is based on. On the left there is the amount of grams needed to break the wire there. So you can see 1100 there is severely rolled edges. Yeah, pretty bad. What we want for carving, we want it to be down in the 200 range or less. And as a reference, you can see the double edge razor blade is, I think, around 75. A utility razor blade knife is in the high 100s, low 200s. And that's what I shoot for when I'm doing this. So does it tell you whether your tool is sharp or not? Sort of. Let me go, whoops. So I got two used tools from Larry, a couple last month. One was a 120 and the other was a 212. And the 120 was really in bad shape. It tested at 600. So on the second system that we had here, I used the 1000 grit belt and got it down to 465. And then the 3000 belt got it down to 350. And then the 12,000 belt got it down to 225. And then I went to the strop and polished it, got down to 195. The number one is a skew, so you have to work on both sides. And at 195, it worked great. The second tool I had was a 212, and it was in bad shape. It had nicks. It was actually sharp. It tested pretty sharp in certain areas, but there are nicks in the blade. So to get rid of the nicks, I went down to 220 until it was flat. And then it tested about 350. It went to the 3000 grit, it went to 130, and then polished it down to 85. So it was super sharp. When I finished with the 220 grit, it had a huge burr on there. You could just get rid of it with your fingers. What's it good for?
Do you have a photo of those two tools? Because I don't understand what kind of tool they were.
So in the Q&A, someone asked about the two chisels that I talked about on the PowerPoint. This is a 120. It's totally flat. It's a skew, so it's got a bevel on both sides. And the 212 is almost flat. So what is this good for? Well, the main thing that you have to be understand, it only measures one spot on the tool. So if you have a 5-inch tool, you're measuring a tiny spot on it. So it assumes that that spot is what the rest of the tool looks like, which may or may not be true. And how you put it on the measuring system can vary. And the reason they provide a fulcrum there, you have to be really steady and you have to go really slow. If you put it on there and push it down straight, it's not going to give you a very valid measurement. So what's it good for? To me, it measures the effectiveness of your sharpening method. You can go to a sharpening system, even on a strop, and if you don't have the right method, you could actually dull a tool. So it will give you verification that the method that you're using works. We got a backup here. Yeah, it's on.
It works here for me. Keep going.
Okay, we got a backup here, but it's not. We need to get that working. Anyway, so what's it used for? See how good your sharpening method is. If the number goes up, then you got a bad technique. So either check your angle. There you go. Check the burr. One thing that I really learned from using this was even after you're stropping and even after you're polishing, there's going to be a tiny burr there, even if you don't feel it. But when you go to the measurement, if you don't take that burr off, your measurement will go up. So the takeaway here is always remove the burr after any kind of sharpening that you're doing. If the number goes down, then you've got a good technique and you can keep going. If the number shows minimal change, then either your sharpening technique or your measuring technique is not the best it could be. I think one of the biggest takeaways after I got this measurement system was most of my sharpening I do on a strop, and I just sort of ignored the burr. But if you take a look at either the knife or the gouge after you've sharpened it under a microscope like Larry had, you will see the burr there, even if you can't feel it, and that affects the measurement. Does it affect your work? Maybe not, because that burr might go away the first time you use the tool. But so I'm a big believer now in taking the burr off regardless of what I do. So some takeaways again, regardless of grit, even the strop, always remove the burr. It will result in a better number. And the other thing I learned from this exercise was on my strop, I have a compound on one side and just plain leather on the other side. And polishing made a big difference. Almost everything I tried, when I went to the polish side, the number went down pretty significantly sometimes. So polishing, I'm a big believer in polishing now. So some of the takeaways, if you have a damaged blade, I'd start lowest grit that you have, 120 or 220. If the blade is good but dull, like we see with the kitchen knife, I'd start with 220, 4 to 600, 1K, 3 to 400, 3,000. And then when you get in the 200 range, I don't know that I would go to 12K. Again, it's depending on the tool, but once you're in the 200 range, you're pretty good to go to the strop and finish up. So, so if you thought you could buy a power system and get away without stropping, then that's not the message we want to give here. The best thing you can do to improve your sharpness is get really good with the strop. And when you go to the strop, it's not just 10 swipes. You need to spend a little bit of time, especially on a new tool, is spend your time, get it sharp, and then use it, and then go back to the strop and keep it sharp.
Yeah, the club between the Guild of Oregon Woodworkers and the Oregon Carvers Guild, we have almost every sharpening system known to man and woman. And so the goal of all of this in the tool library in general is to allow you to experiment without going out, but before you go out and invest things. So the club has acquired this system, including the BESS system. So if you bring over a tool and want to try this and try it out, you may. And sometimes it's just come and use it instead of going out and buying your own. Roger, you might scan on that other workbench. There's two other systems I didn't talk about up here, which are the chipping away system. It'll be a little bit hard to see. The red vertical one in the back is their belt system with sandpaper grits, kind of a similar version of this with a bigger motor. They also have a leather belt for stropping, and you spend time obviously changing the belts. And then the small system in front has got a series of wheels, small ones toward us now, and a flat one in the back, and flat one for doing the bevels, the back bevels and knives, and then the small ones for doing the insides of small gouges. That's the chipping away system. And it's been, as far as I can tell, been around for about 20 or 25 years. Canadian-based operation, and they've been reviewed, and so it's not a new system. We did a program with probably the best work system sharpener that I know and have been able to meet, and is named Dave Dignam from the Morro Bay Club in Central Coast, California. And that was in February of this past year, so this basically a year ago. He did a really comprehensive demo of the Burke system on how he uses it, and particularly how he uses it with the original WorkSharp system that had the flat surface, but instead of using sandpaper on a glass disc, he used a diamond plate, a round diamond plate that fit on that system to flatten the rounded over portions of the back bevels, the bevels of the gouges. Then he went to the Burke system and worked through the grits, and then finally used a buffing wheel quite aggressively. I think he had two different buffing wheels on his system, and he evolved his own system. It's quite an interesting video to watch if you kind of go down that path in a serious way. We also did a program with the Drake system featuring Nancy Gerard, who's a serious sharpener, obviously. And she will be at the show in Lincoln City this coming weekend. And people bring their gouges and knives, and she'll sharpen them while you go do other things at the show. But she also demoed in my shop how she works that system, and she has her own nuances for establishing the angle and getting feedback. And it's different than what I use. And I won't go into how I use it, but that, getting that angle right, I use what Jeff taught me, which is putting the gouge bevel down on the right wheel, and then putting it conservatively, and then moving it, tilting it very slowly and carefully into the wheel, with the light height coming down, with the wax working against the very edge. And once the burr starts forming, you can see the burr starting to form because it's grabbing the wax, and the wax is building up at the end of the tool. And the key is having the light shining straight down and knowing where to look. It's not a field system as much as it is a site-based system. Everybody's got their own technique, so you just have to kind of come up with your own. But the foundation for all of that is having stones or water stones or sanding blocks or something of that you can get experience. If you think about stropping, you're basically stropping once per second, right? So that's about 60 RPM. That's about the speed you're going to go. And if your motor doesn't run out of energy, you can keep that up for hours, but probably you get bored after a while. So these motors are running somewhere between 400 and 3,500 RPM. And so it's doing a lot more work a lot faster, and also making mistakes a lot faster. The one thing I didn't comment on at the very beginning was heat is your enemy. That particularly with tools that don't have a lot of metal mass, and you start putting those against fine grit sandpaper, it takes a lot of work for the fine grits to remove metal, which has great danger of overheating. So the important thing is to start with a very coarse grit in order to shape the edge. dwell very, very slowly, and for short amounts of time, and keeps the thing moving. And having a bottle of water available so you can quench the thing if it feels hot. Almost everybody that's talks about sharpening talks about having their fingers near the edge of the tool. So if your hand can't hold that heat, then that means you are overheating. It's time to quench. That's your feedback mechanism. And so obviously a lot safer than trying to hold it way back. So you get way more control on that process. I think that's all I have to say. Right. So we have, I'm going to go back in my office. I'm going to field questions there. Why don't you come in the office?
Okay.
There we go. Now we're back to normal. Okay, we see everybody. So we can have a conversation or not. So if you want to unmute your microphones, deal with this. But while you're thinking about questions, I'll just sort of comment. Leslie Cantor, Leslie is marked on the screen. She is our safety director and on our board of directors. And she's the one writing articles every month about safety. And rotary tools obviously open up some risk for being able to drive a tool into your body, and that's not a good thing. It's also, there are cautions in what Drake put out about wearing eye protection so you don't get particles of metal or wax driven into your eyes. That's kind of important. I've never had any worries about any stuff that I've been doing over the 6 years using the grinder base system. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but at least it's not happened for me. Okay, questions? Experts. By the way, everybody's got their own system. And my own experience is we tend to fall in love with the thing we first tried. And that's not bad. There's just lots of variables on all these things. Yeah, John.
This is John. One thing with something like the Drake is high speed. If at home you're using a grinder that turns the other direction for whatever reason, and then you go to the Drake, you absolutely have to be sure that you're pointing the tool in the right direction. A friend of mine that was a highly skilled carver put his tool in the wrong direction, and the force is so much, it pulled the tool out, and completely by luck, it spun the tool, and the butt of the tool hit him in the forehead, and then bounced off the ceiling in a high ceiling room. It could have been absolutely just the other way around, and he could have caught the pointy end. So you have to absolutely make sure you're putting in the right direction.
That's really great advice. Yeah.
Larry, I put a question in the chat.
Yeah, so Greg, that was your question. It said for a knife set at 15 degrees, use see an enclosed angle of 30 degrees. For a gouge set at 20 degrees, you have an included angle of 20. I was trained to go for 28-degree angle for knives.
Yes, so it seems like what you're doing is okay for the knives, but you're getting a much sharper angle on your gouges. Is that intentional? Because you're only sharpening one side of the gouge, whereas you're sharpening both sides of the knife.
Yeah, so my understanding of the knife sharpening system that we just looked at is that when it says 20 degrees, it's actually 10 degrees on each side.
Right.
So you're getting an included
Also-
angle of 20 degrees. So you get to choose what the angle is. For those of us that are woodworkers as well as carvers, chisels, standard carpentry chisels run from 15 degrees to 45 degrees, right? So you get to choose the strength and durability of that. So mortising chisels, which are being driven down into wood, and sometimes hardwood, and sometimes used as pry, you get a steep included angle. But if you're paring off the top of dowels or something, using a paring chisel, it's going to be more 15 and 20 degrees kind of an angle. So I think the bottom line is there is no right angle. It's really a function of what you're trying to do. So hunting knives have a different angle than different kinds of woodworking devices that are there. That makes sense, Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that first system we showed, that goes after the consumer market, and all they know is 20 degrees is what they are shooting for. And the jig itself makes sure that the included angle is 20. When we went to the second system for the gouges, then that's, again, you're using the marker method to get the angle you want. And that's what you want to build your muscle memory in your carving to use that angle. And I think it's in the low 20s.
If somebody isn't familiar with sanding wood with the various grits, then they're going to be in trouble understanding progression of grits on dealing with metal. We're making about 300 comfort birds a year using power sanding on 20 different pieces, 20 different kinds of hardwoods. And after we get through all the power sanding and then some of the rotary tool stuff, we sand it to 80 grits. And everything has got to be perfect at 80 grit. That's equivalent to quitting the honing. That's the zero angle, zero radius kind of step. After that, it's just grunt work to take off all the sanding marks. But if you try to take off and shape stuff at 400 grit, you're going to be there forever, right? So it's the same kind of thing, using these sharpeners with the most aggressive to get it shaped and then deal with the profiling and getting the grit marks off is the issue. Easier said than done. And so many of us want to go back to work. When I talk to new carvers, I said, you really have a bunch of strategies. One strategy is to learn how to sharpen your own tools and do your own tools. Another strategy is marry somebody that likes to sharpen and is good at it, right? Another strategy is go pay someone to sharpen it, right? It's a pretty good deal for, $3 to take 10 tools, and for $30 you're just done with it, and Nancy will turn them back. Gil Drake, what his company policy had been, I think it still is, that he will sharpen for free for life once you get the edge to him. And what people would do is they would come to the show, Drake would come to the show, or Jeff Harness for him, and they would sharpen all the tools for free. And they just got a bunch. So if you use, a number 9 or number 3 a lot, you buy a couple of them, you keep one sharp, and when one gets dull, you pick up the other one. So you pay someone to do it. Or the other is that sometimes classes, the instructors will sharpen for you, and that's an advantage. Another strategy is to buy disposable blades.
Larry, is Drake still in business?
What's that, John?
Is Drake still in business?
That's a good question. As far as I know, they're still in business with impossibly long lead times.
Yeah.
So Gil died, I think,
Yeah.
3 years ago. Russ Lawrence was on this call here earlier. He might have left. It seemed like, knives were 6 months and then they became 12 months and now they're 18 months or something. So he got tired of waiting. My understanding from his wife Bonnie and from his son, who I've never met, they took over the business and they are doing what they can, but they don't have the volume. They don't have the throughput they had. Because Gil had a manufacturing setup north of Seattle, and he had another one in Mesa. So even when he snowbirded in Arizona, he was able to keep manufacturing going. And then his son helped out. And then, but I don't know, John. I thought about calling Bonnie up and asking. Um, it's one of these things. My new favorite knife maker is a guy named Everett Carter in Salem. And Everett's been making knives out of plane blades and selling them for $25. And they are just great. They're okay. They're not fancy, they're functional, but the blades are superb. They're really good. But he doesn't make gouges. And so you kind of Okay, or make your own, which is problem. Yeah. Did we gore any oxes or scare anybody or convince you to go buy something or never buy something or go into photography instead of carving? Or I think knives are, I would love to have talked to somebody, a professor at a chef school to talk about sharpening. I was a general contractor for 5 years in my semi-retirement and had a guy named Mike Garvey working for me. He went to chef school and
I
they
have
ended
another,
up buying some really serious ceramic stones in order to sharpen their equipment.
I got
So,
another question.
we're not the only ones, right? Yes, I'm sorry, who's
Um,
talking?
you didn't really show how you remove the burr. Could you explain how
How to remove the berm.
yeah,
Yeah.
You want to tackle that, Roger, or do you want me to?
Um, well, the easiest way is to get a piece of leather. If you're doing a gouge, fold it to the curve of the gouge and just rub it along the inside. For a knife, I think, again, just take a couple swipes on the on raw leather to get rid of the burr.
so you use leather with no
No
abrasive on
compound. Yeah, you don't need to remove the burr. You don't really need compound. You just need something rough.
it. Okay, thank you.
So there's a whole bunch of answers to that, Greg. Mary May has some free videos on her website, and I encourage you to go watch those. She has two on sharpening. She's all sharpening by hand. We've had her out 3 times, and I asked her about sharpening and why she doesn't use power sharpening, and she said she almost had a fatal accident. She had just what John was talking about, except it drove the gouge back toward her, and it scared the daylights out of her. So she does everything by hand, and her videos are by hand, and so she goes back and forth on the gouges with a slipstone, and the woodworkers do the same, talk about the same thing. Just keep refining it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till it falls off. That can go forever. Other woodworkers will take a piece of hardwood with some diamond paste, a piece of hard maple, and they will put some diamond paste on it and they'll run the edge through the end grain of a block of wood and kind of cut it off. The problem with breaking it off is that it will leave a serrated edge at the very top, which you will never see, but it will still be serrated. And that little serrated ripple will be fragile. And those parts will dull faster. What Jeff Harness taught me is when he formed the burr on the right wheel on his grinder, we tip if the curvature works, to tip it over very gently and just touch it on the corners, left side, right side of that wheel, and just kind of grind the burr off. It might put a little back bevel on the inside, but he would also, after that, go to the floppy wheel and deal with the inside. And if any burr that was left, go left side, right side, and kind of break it off that way, and then go back several times. So if the burr didn't grind off or fall off, you would take it off on that softer wheel.
Yeah, put a
And
link to Mary May's website in the chat.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, when I said use the piece of leather, I was referring to really tiny burrs. When I did the 220 grit, the one chisel there, that burr was just huge. And if you just went and broke that off, it would cause a big serrated edge, like Larry said.
yeah.
So
The two classic approaches we hand out in a sharpening workshop that we do really thick, like real thick leather. We round off some side, and we cut 45 degrees or on the other side for being able to get at insides of V-tools or gouges. But the classic way is to use slipstones. And they can be, hard Arkansas, black Arkansas, or Spyderco has a little kit of different, of little rounds and diamonds and flats that allow you to get at the insides of almost any tool you can imagine. to me, that's the best little kit that I can think of. But the leather with some honing compound on it is another way to do that.
Larry, I wanted to say to you, the tip that you gave about if you're looking at the sharp edge of a tool, whatever it is, and you have a good light, if you have a white line or a mirror line, that tool is not sharp. And you said that, but you have to have a good light. You're looking right directly at the sharp edge of the tool. And then I like to use my thumbnail. I'll take a knife or a gouge, and that way I can go all the way on a gouge or a knife. I can do the whole blade, and
Hold your thumb up a little bit, John, so we can see
yeah,
what.
there. I just take my knife, and I kind of stick it into the thumbnail, and
Yeah,
if it sticks, it's pretty sharp. If
yeah,
it slides, it's not.
right.
And that way you can go down your whole blade easily. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Nancy Gerard does that as well. Some people talk about shaving hair off their arms, whatever the Doug Linker on YouTube had a review of the chipping away belt sanding system, and he sharpens some tools in a demo. It's really a nice YouTube video to look up Doug Linker and chipping away on sharpening. But he just picked up a soft piece of paper and just shaved it. If that's soft, there's no backing to that floppy paper. It's kind of like the Japanese samurai swords being able to just, you know, cut something just in thin air. So that would be another way to kind of test besides the wood block or using the technology system that Roger showed. In the end of the day, does it carve, right? And that's the end. Okay. Leslie, any questions? Um, I'll acknowledge Doug CS down here. That's Doug Carlson Swanson. We have carving SIGs, and he brought in his massager-based do-it-yourself sharpening system, which is really slick. I mean, it is really slick. There's a guy that does that. It goes very slow, and it really does work really well. And there's just an endless number of solutions that are going on here. I think the nice thing about the original WorkSharp disc-based thing is like it was 400 or 500 RPM, and it was a nice slow motor. The problem that I had and don't like about it, because I was taught by Jeff, you have to be able to see that edge. If you can't see that burr being formed and you can't see what's going on, everything is by feel. And feel is too dangerous. It'll never give you the control that you want. I thought about taking that WorkSharp and mounting it vertically so that the wheel you could see what was going on and kind of duplicate the grinding system at about 1/3 the speed. So instead of running at 1750, run it at 500. Because that motor seemed like a good source of a relatively slow speed motor. For anybody that's going to be at the show, we have a spare Drake system that's going to be will be sold. The one that the Grizzly motor. I'm taking that and I'll sell it at the show for some good price. Yeah. Next month, we have a really interesting program with Scott Lang. Scott Lang is the president of the Central Coast Woodcarvers in Morro Bay, California. I belong to that club. Of the 40 or odd clubs in California, it's one of the most active, and Scott's been running it for 25 years. He did a talk for us 2 years ago, I think, on how to make your own knife using a jigsaw blade and this really hard metal. And he makes a very long, pointy blade. He uses that in the demo for next week, which is a bird in a cage whittling. It's really an advanced whittling project using two knives. And it's got, I think, 10 spokes around the cage. It's got a little ball at the top, a little hook at the top with a loose ball. And inside is a trapeze that swings inside the cage with a parrot on the trapeze. all done within one piece of wood, not glued up. And it becomes really fragile at various parts. But by keeping anchor points, he's got, I think, 8 different progressions already carved out on how to do that. It's an interesting demo, and he's done that for quite some time. The March program, I'm going to do movie favorites. There are a whole lot of videos that some people know about, some don't. In Oregon, John Leroy Setzel is well known. We did a program on him 5 years ago. There's just several documentaries, and the Gil Drake videos that we did. Some of the ones that we did in this monthly sequence that we did. My goal is to do 3 minute, 5 minute little excerpts of those so people know that they exist. It's kind of like trailers or previews of things that people say, "Oh." Same with Rick Pass, who did a major thing on bird carving. Don Baer is a major bird carver in Oregon who passed away a couple years ago. We were able to do a video of him maybe a year before he passed away and do a shop tour of his studio. And there are others. There are obviously tons of YouTube videos. There are DVDs. Chris Pye has got an unbelievable library of stuff. There's a fantastic sharpening DVD. I'm not sure I put that out. Anyway, this is done by Rob. Make a noise here. By Rob Kosman. He did a series of DVDs, one on letter carving, one on sharpening. And I think we got 2 copies of this sharpening one that he did. So they're just fantastic. And there's just tons of stuff. There's not enough time in the world to read all the books and to look at all the videos. So by doing little snippets, my goal is to kind of paint a picture of well-known carvers in Oregon that people should know. They should know Gil Drake's name, and they should know Dennis Mim, and they should know Larry Roberts. And there are people that have just done extraordinary work. And some of that's been documented, and by and large, people don't know about them. So it's movie night. So that's March, and I'm not sure what I'll do in April and May. We'll figure it out. Thanks for joining. If you have any feedback, good or bad, let us know. Apologize for the live TV. I hate live TV. I hate live. This live stuff is for the birds. But we have no choice. That's the way we do it. Most of the time, I've been trying to do video shoots ahead of time, just so we take out all these technology variables to be able to get at it. Okay, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for joining. We'll see you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to hang around, I'll hang around for a bit. No more football to watch.
So how is you're going to sell that Grizzly sharpening system at the show?
Ask that again, please.
Say again.
I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, you're going to sell the Grizzly sharpening system at the show? The one
Yeah,
with Grizzly
yeah.
motor? How's that going to work? You have a set,
How much will it charge for?
yeah,
I don't know yet. Somewhere between normally about $125 would be my guess.
yep. Well, I'd like to explore the idea of buying it from you and not,
It's a good deal. I mean, it's got a good motor in it, and I think it was lightly used. It was given to the club, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and it's just not being used. It's one of these things. If the club has another one that's available to borrow and try out. That's got a half-speed Rikon motor on it. But this other one, what I would do with it if you do buy it, Greg, is to put that rest block on it, and then just do a light, $10 LED light over the top will
yeah,
deal with everything you want to deal with.
yep. So could I go ahead and buy it?
If you want to make a decision, I won't take it down to the show.
Okay, well, why don't you take
You want
it that
to
I'm
come
getting?
look at it? I'm leaving about 10 o'clock on Friday morning. If you want to come over anytime before that, you're welcome to look at it.
Yeah, I could see what it was from the
Okay.
pictures.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make a commitment to buy it if,
Okay. Will you buy it for 125?
yes,
Will you buy it for 150? I'm so kidding.
whatever.
120, 125 it is. I think it's a good system. It's the motor is worth more than that. And the to go through the hassle of finding the wheels, which are in good shape, it's yet another hassle. So I think it's saves a lot of time and is a good system.
Yeah, I
I
can't
think
make it out to the show, and I probably won't be able to get over to your house before then, but I will definitely buy
that's no problem. No, I trust you, and it'll just be here.
Right.
Okay, saves me lugging one more thing to Lincoln City.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate
Okay,
your
okay,
your
everybody.
efforts here.
Okay, great. Nice seeing you.
Bye-bye.